And all these developments today, both on the investigation and on Don Lemon's arrest and those criminal charges, happen as mass protests have been spreading throughout the country.
So the entire power structure of left field America is now under investigation, which is why mobs are taking to the streets to fight the federal government once again, to distract from the discovery of even more fake daycares, fake hospitals, and other schemes that rob our country to fund its annihilation. But now the tables have turned in a way that's got America's domestic adversaries in panic.
Huge protests from Texas to California, New York, make some noise! To Minnesota. In North Carolina, students pouring out of school.
They're human traffickers. They're trafficking beneficiaries.
Ghost patients, sham companies, offshore owners, corrupt doctors, scamming billions for patients that don't exist and care they never provide.
You can see an officer back there. He's alone and they're just throwing things at him. I mean, it's just pretty incredible that these protesters have overtaken this and there's no police.
If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded.
All of it is just paperwork. I could fill that out in Kazakhstan if I want.
The United States government is funding this. We're $36 trillion in debt, or are we $36 trillion in fraud?
So this article talks about how America's now got a fraud czar. Why do we need a fraud czar? This should terrify everybody. But nobody's talking about how every single scheme out there that led to this, all of them, the fake daycares, the fake hospitals, where is most of this stuff getting discovered, and which side of American politics unilaterally benefits from more of it? That would be the open borders crowd, who's decided that robbing our country is the best way to achieve the American dream for themselves. An agenda they're trying to cover up by amassing mobs of agitators who wreak havoc and chaos across the country, while average, everyday people who aren't involved in any of this suffer from an affordability crisis never before seen in our history, but can't seem to vote against it as population growth in sanctuaries give states like California and other socialist strongholds immense electoral power no one can stop. But as you're about to see, major investigations are heating up in these places, not just California, but Ohio and Maine, and a whole bunch of spots where we've discovered fraud recently. And the reasons for these investigations have existed for decades, because for years, whistleblowers were sounding the alarm, trying to shed light on how scammers rob our country each and every day, but nobody wanted to listen. But now that the plundering of America has gone viral, those willing to stand against this are doing everything they can to crack down on schemes from immigration fraud to fake transportation companies that drive around fake patients to daycares and clinics that don't actually exist. Which brings us to the real reason all of these mobs are taking to the streets, doing everything they can to stop these investigations. They're all happening in sanctuaries. They're all happening in places where there is an entrenched power structure that benefits from this stuff, and the mobs don't want to see that go away. Because if it does, there goes their power, there goes their stranglehold on America, which they hope to hold on to by claiming that they're peacefully protesting Trump, who's kidnapping their neighbors, while violently destroying property and attacking police, all to protect fugitives who shouldn't be in our country and those who steal from America in order to enrich themselves somehow. But the reason this happens in sanctuaries only is obvious. Once you've got a power structure packed full of criminals and fugitives, the local population becomes radicalized, defending them like this. So the riots are back in sanctuary cities, and they look just like they did last summer. This has not stopped. There have literally been riots for Trump's entire second term so far. And no, these are not organic.
If you've ever wondered how protests happen on the spot, this is exactly how. Without organizers, without the music, without the bullhorns, without all of these people coming together. And right now what they're doing is they're loading their trucks to leave out of here after they finish with the protest. None of the protests that you see that happen immediately after something happens, which is all the time now, wouldn't be possible. What's behind me is a combination of Party for Socialism and Liberation. We have Democrat Socialists of America here.
Right, so these protests, they're not organic. In fact, they're the fakest thing since the fake news. There's nothing about them that is legitimate, yet we're supposed to see them and think these are average people who were on their way to the grocery store and just decided to pull over on the side of the road and combat the federal government. That's what we're supposed to think. But instead, these are a cover-up for what's really going on here, which is the massive industrialized fraud that includes the very protest apparatus defending it, which, as you're about to see, is also robbing the federal government blind.
This other protester we secretly recorded talks about an organization called Make the Road New York. We've never heard of this organization, but apparently they have a budget of $30 million, and they received $16 million in grants. We are in the wrong business, everyone. Can you imagine what Nick Shirley could do with $16 million? Can you imagine what James O'Keefe could do with $16 million? The United States government is funding this.
Here's what's going on. You've got a fraud industrial complex that wants to survive. That complex funds politicians who enact the very laws that benefit these scammers while they look the other way, allegedly. And then you've got the mobs who are also on the take. All three of these groups don't want to see any of this go away. That's why we've got such unity over here in this part of America. And now we're supposed to believe that these people are the victims.
That I wouldn't be where I am at today, having to pay for security, having the government to think about providing me security if Donald Trump wasn't in office and if he wasn't so obsessed with me. It is ironic that just last night he was on stage moments before I was attacked.
So here we have Representative Omar, who's under intense scrutiny as her $30 million net worth has gone viral. And she's allegedly the victim of all of this. She's the one who's been stoking the mobs, but oh, now she's a victim of Trump too. You see how this works? Here she is surrounded by anti-ICE rioters, claiming to be one of them, claiming to be just as attacked as they are, which of course they aren't. And it's America that's being attacked from every conceivable angle possible by those looking to disenfranchise the law-abiding. But while she says she needs security, which she already had at that press event where somebody rushed her, it's America that needs security from the mobs that just will not go away. Look at this.
Pretty incredible that these protesters have overtaken this, and there's no police. I don't see anybody here to kind of manage this crowd. So like I was saying, this is at the tail end of a very long day.
Zero police. No local police. And that's how these local politicians help the mobs. They have their own police disappear so the mobs can destroy everything and attack the federal government in a less than peaceful manner. And this is happening in California, where the National Guard needed to be deployed earlier this year. Yet these mobs, these rioters, they don't see anything wrong with this because their leaders have told them that the only criminal in this country is the one in the White House. As the last thing any of these sanctuaries want is for their schemes to get discovered and shut down, which would destroy the entire fraud apparatus controlling parts of America. However, even though we've got politicians like Representative Omar, who are worth $30 million and are out there claiming to be victims, that victimhood status is something that all of the rioters and protesters out there somehow share, even though they live in America.
Believe what you see, not what you're told, not what you hear. Take the evidence and make your own judgment about it. And know that we are all people and we are all oppressed. And we have to stay together and believe the truth and find it together and stand together.
So the people marching across this country who've got iPhones and money and unlimited access to things like food and transportation and communication, these people say that they are all oppressed. Really? That's what's fueling these protests? Angry people who hate our country and think that they're somehow victims of it, even though they benefit from it each and every day. These are people who benefit from the safety ICE brings them by deporting dangerous fugitives and gang members. These are people who benefit from investigations that shut down fraudulent companies, robbing America, making life less affordable for all of us. And they don't even realize it. But what most people don't realize is these fraudsters, the way they're ripping off America happens in ways none of us have ever thought of.
Hey, Dana, you have ghost patients, sham companies, offshore owners, corrupt doctors here in L.A. scamming billions for patients that don't exist and care they never provide.
Wonderful.
Now, many seniors don't even know they've been enrolled until they need real medical care but can't get it because the hospice controls their Medicare number.
What a great system.
They're human traffickers. They're trafficking beneficiaries.
Wow. Hospice fraud in L.A.
Hospice is crazy here. You've got hospice that's grown 7-fold in the last 5 years. They represent about $3.5 billion of fraud, we believe, just in L.A. County.
We are ground zero for the scammers.
Sheila Clark says hundreds of L.A. hospices falsely bill the government for unnecessary care.
Wow. And this is $3.5 billion just in L.A. County. If it's happening here, this stuff is happening everywhere in our country, and it's legitimized because these are medical facilities and they care for people. And oh, if you want to investigate them, you don't have a heart. You're trying to take something away from the vulnerable and the needy. But what's really going on here is criminal organizations have found another way to get their fingers on America's piggy bank and take it and use it for purposes that will make all of us sick.
Often cycling patients from one provider to another.
Wow.
It's a non-ending benefit. That hospice is making, $4,000 a month indefinitely.
Patients are bought and sold like trading cards. Ads tell recruiters to post up at busy shopping centers or senior living addresses to knock on doors. They promise patients walkers, wheelchairs, and can earn $300 for any senior over 62.
Why get a real job in America if you can just live in a sanctuary city that doesn't enforce any laws, doesn't check up on these places, doesn't bust these people lurking around the shopping mall or the senior center trying to sign people up for stuff so that they can get paid? Go there if you want to experience the American dream. But what's really happening here is these criminals are stealing the American dream while our country goes into debt, while regular, everyday, average people can't afford basic things that programs like this are supposed to provide. That's the worst part about it. We got an affordability crisis in this country that we've never seen before, and the programs to help the law-abiding deal with that are gone because they've all been taken and stolen by scammers.
If you're a young parent struggling to afford childcare in the United States of America, there are programs that we have to make it easier for your kids to get in daycare, for your kids to get in preschool. Those programs should go to American citizens, not be defrauded. But number two, making it easier for people who shouldn't even be in this country to fleece the United States and our taxpayers to begin with.
Wow.
We have actually activated a major interagency task force to make it possible to get to the heart of this fraud.
And that's what the mobs are so mad about. You see, all of these scam businesses, no matter what state they're in, no matter who's running them, all of these things allow a group who's organized to rob the federal government and fuel an insurrection that has been taking over this country for a lot longer than just the last year and a half. And you know something? If you want to go to a daycare and that daycare is getting government money, but it's completely empty, and you want to sign your kids up and they tell you no, the reason that they tell you no isn't because they don't have space in the daycare, or the reason the hospice can't take any new patients isn't because they don't have space in the hospice. No, there's just so much fraud going on in that place that if they bring in one more patient, the criminals running it are thinking to themselves, gee, we might get shut down, we might get investigated because we're already billing this much money. If that gets any higher, man, they might really come for us. We got to keep our levels low. That's the agreement these places probably all have with each other. Nobody wants to raise any suspicion, but this is all very suspicious, as you're about to see.
$300 for any senior over 62, they sign up, sick or not.
Their entire job is to go and find seniors that they can get money for.
Those patients and their Medicare numbers are then sold to providers.
Wow.
A Medicare MIB number is more lucrative than a credit card.
Wow.
How much money are federal taxpayers being taken for?
Millions, billions.
It's better than a credit card.
Russian Armenian gangs, mafia, that are leading a lot of these efforts, we believe, have been able to corrupt and work with doctors who are willing to lie.
If you don't have the physician, you don't have anything.
Wow.
One doctor billed the government $120 million in a single year, claiming to oversee 1,900 patients.
Wow. 1,600 patients, $120 million a year, and America just paid for it. Sure, you've got patients, you've got their Medicare IDs, looks like everything checks out. Here's the money. Take it and look at this.
Almost 2,000 hospice agencies. LA County has more than 36 states combined, and 30 times more than either Florida or New York.
18% of the whole country's home health care billing is coming out of Los Angeles County. How is that possible?
Because people like the governor of this place don't care. People like Governor Newsom in California, they see stuff like this going on, and they turn a blind eye to it. They don't want to look at it for some reason. Same thing with Minnesota. Same thing with all these sanctuaries where you see the mobs on the street. The leaders of these places are being fueled in some capacity by these scams. They may not be directly involved, as allegations suggest some elected representatives are, but they directly benefit from it because they're the ones passing these laws that enable these scams and these schemes in the first place. And it's up to the states to regulate how government money gets distributed, which is weird. You've got a state like California who is responsible for spending the money of taxpayers in Florida, and it goes right to scammers. What a great system.
And take a look at this map, a cluster of 287 hospice providers in a 2-mile radius.
Wow, look at
Some
that.
in strip malls, unmarked buildings, even a wrecking yard and vacant lot.
That's your $19 or $120 million hospital right here. It's vacant parking lot. Absolutely insane. But the only way for this to happen is for the same stuff that was happening in Minnesota to happen here, but to be 10 times worse. In Minnesota, nobody was going to the fake daycares to see that their doors were locked, there was no lights on, there were no cars in the parking lot. But then average people went out there with cameras and filmed it, and the whole country woke up to this kind of thing. The fact that you got a vacant lot right here that's billing the government money, even though there's nothing going on there, is absolutely ridiculous. But this just goes to show you, you've got somebody at a computer who doesn't really care about saving our country anything, and they see that there's a number, and they see that there's a hospital, and they see that there's all the licenses, and they say, hey, no problem. It doesn't even occur to them that this could all be happening in a parking lot somewhere. Which is why you've got to wonder why America even has systems like this to begin with if they're so easily defrauded. These are bad systems. Caring for people's not bad, but a system like this is terrible.
It is just paperwork. I could fill that out in Kazakhstan if I want.
That's crazy.
And get a hospice license waiting for me.
It's real human life, and it has consequences.
The problem, says Clark, once a beneficiary's number is assigned to a hospice, that patient can't get care anywhere else, including a hospital.
We need to listen to these people when they say, I've been scammed.
Wow.
Now, yesterday, Governor Newsom filed a civil rights complaint against Dr. Oz for, quote, unfairly targeting the Armenian community. However, the governor's own auditor, state and federal prosecutors say Armenian American organized crime is behind much of the fraud here. And in 2022, auditors told the governor that weak state controls, a lack of guardrails, and poor licensing created a situation causing the state to put a moratorium, Dana, on new hospices. And since then, they've revoked about 280 licenses.
But why would the governor come out against something like this if his own office and his own police saw the exact same problems the federal government saw and did nothing about it? I'll tell you why. It's because you have politicians in these places that benefit from these corrupt systems. You think all of these health cares, these fake businesses, these fake daycares, you think they're all getting set up and nobody in the local government knows about this? You think you can just open up a hospital or a daycare somewhere and get government money and not be on the right team? Of course not. These are government contracts. They always get given out to friendly interests. You see how this works? And once somebody wants to crack down on those interests, it's your job as the politician to get out there and fight against this if you still want the votes of an entire community. And if you don't want that community to think that you're attacking it, right? You see how this works?
100 indictments, mostly Somali immigrants, but also a few others. And of course, we're looking in with broad investigatory authority to a number of the instances of wrongdoing that we've seen in Minneapolis. But we also want to expand this. We know that the fraud isn't just happening in Minneapolis.
Right.
It's also happening in states like Ohio. It's happening in states like California. And so what we're doing in order to help coordinate this remarkable interagency effort effort from the Trump administration, but also to make sure that we prosecute the bad guys and do it as swiftly and efficiently as possible, is we are creating a new Assistant Attorney General position who will have nationwide jurisdiction over the issue of fraud.
Now here's what I want to ask. Do you think if this man was not vice president and Tim Walz was vice president instead of him, do you think we'd be hearing from Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, who was the king of fraud until Gavin Newsom recently usurped him and took that mantle? Do you think we'd have a nationwide fraud czar? Do you think we would have nationwide fraud investigations going into places like California where local police found problems and did nothing? Absolutely not. You've got to realize something. Every single vote against corruption and fraud in America is very important. The country came this close, one election, from being totally plundered and robbed in ways that we were never going to find out about. And if that kind of thing happens, it's not going to be long before things in America change in an irreparable manner. The fraud is going to get so big and become so widespread that it's going to take over all 50 states, not just the ones that vote against any type of accountability whatsoever, from illegal immigration all the way up to a fake hospital in Maine with all these clinics inside of it and zero patients. That's what I happen to think. What do you think? Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.